what we're going to do is that I just want to throw out here, if you don't mind for us to recall the section, that would be great. So that at least if people who get to miss it, that could be another way for us to not run the second section. That is, people who don't get to attend the first session, we can put it on the church website. They can watch the second session, but I mean, there is nothing like being together tonight like this to share the views as compared to just listening to the recording. So I'm so grateful. I will go on the screen right now for us to introduce ourselves, because I see three new persons tonight. So I will start with Diane.
Hi.
Great.
I'm Diane Shanks.
Good to see you, Diane.
Thank
We will
you.
go to Linda.
Which one?
Linda B, not Linda F, Linda B. And if you don't mind, you just say the church you attend or where you come from. So we might just go back to Diane to tell us if the community or church you attend, whatever pleases you, you know, but at least so we have an idea where you're coming from.
Okay, I attend Peace Church.
Great. So Linda B.
I am Linda Bradley. I also attend Peace Church.
Linda F. You are muted, I think. We can't get you, but I don't see you muted. I don't see the mute sign, but you are just not audible. So we will just keep a go to David while you try to fix your audio, and we will come right back to you. David Smith.
Sure, I'm David Schmidt. I used to go to Peace Church. Now I moved up to the Twin Cities.
Oh, good to see you, David.
Yes.
And then we'll go to Adele Zanga. We want to know you from where. I think this is your first time on this section. You are muted, Adele.
Unmute.
Great.
Adele Zander, Lewiston, Minnesota.
Oh, Lewiston.
Go to a UCC church in Lewiston, Minnesota, and Deborah Adams is my niece.
Oh, great. Good to see you, Adele. Great. Good to see you. Amazing people tonight. We will go to John and Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy.
And I'm John, and we've never heard her called Deborah before, so I'll have to pull that on her next time I see her.
Okay, Debbie.
Debbie does.
Debbie.
We both go to Peace Church.
Great. Good to see you all. We will go to Sonia.
I'm Sonia Hogue, and I go to Peace Church.
Very good to see you, Sonia. We will go to Claire.
I'm Claire, work at Peace Church.
Great, thank you. Good to see you, Claire. And we see Jessica who just joined us.
Hi, I'm Jessica, and my husband works at Peace Church.
Good to see you, Jessica. You've been so missed. We missed you so much, but good to see you tonight. Just before we go to the last person, of course, my name is Jerry. We've been running Zoom for this program since November 7, 2020, and I'm glad to see all of you people. Tonight we have with us Pastor Jan Weissman and her partner, Bob. Pastor Jan Weissman is the pastor for the Community Presbyterian Church here in Rochester. So Pastor Jan and Bob, will you just briefly introduce yourselves?
Yes, yep, I'm Jan at Community Presbyterian, and we are very fortunate to be having Jerry speaking to us a week from Sunday, again, for the second time. So people really love to hear him, and we're happy for that.
Great. Thank you very much. Bob.
Hi, I'm Bob Hoxie. I'm a member of the Quaker meeting in town here. And I'm lucky enough to get to hang out with Jan all the time.
I like that. And I'm looking forward to attending some of your Quakers meetings. So we were talking about this on the 16th when I come to Presbyterian Church. I would be very happy to attend some of your meetings and just hear the perspective of the people there. Wow. And so we have Cheryl Winter who just joined us. Cheryl, you want to call your name where the church you attend or so?
Do you want me to say my name?
Yeah, that's what we did. We just call your name and the church you attend or where you come from, what pleases you. Yeah, just briefly.
I'm Cheryl Winters and I'm affiliated with Peace Church and to be at my house tonight and I was supposed to be in Florida, but anyway, here I am instead.
Yeah, good to see you, Cheryl. We will try to go back to Linda F. We don't know whether her audio has fixed.
Oh, hi.
Great,
You
we
hear-
got you.
Am I okay?
Yes, very well.
Okay, yeah, and I'm from Peace Church, longtime member, and have enjoyed the Africa information and you learn a lot.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Linda. And I'd like to say welcome to all of you people. I just wanted to quickly do quick introduction so that we can start. It might just take a little bit longer. I'm glad that we are all here. Just one quick announcement. What we had done from the beginning was like I said, we've been running this section for the last 1 year. We started November 7, 2020. It went so well. We had books, we had videos, but we have really worked on the video a lot because what we're trying to do is that before we start talking deep, going deep into Africa, we want to know the history. My father often says, if you don't know your history, you don't know where you come from and you don't know where you're going. So we want to dig into the history of Africa, then we can be able, if we are taking a book to read or have a particular subject, then we can go ahead. So this is now, we are just talking about the history and it has been so good. So what we were doing we were running 2 sections. I mean, we were running, we used to have it every other week, but because of busy schedule, some people got job, COVID is just stressing us out. Other people got activities, families to attend to. So we decided to run 1 session every month. So that at least one reason is that if we have 1 session and we show people will be committed to that, even that 1 session, they will book their calendar ahead of time. They will work around all their different schedules and make sure that this 1 session is attended at all costs. So that's one of the reasons why we did that. Secondly, some people are busy. Some people have kids to take care of. Maybe that's a family time when we have ready to have the session. So what we did, we decided to run 2 sections. One that runs from 7 to 8, and then the second one 8 to 9. And you are free to attend whatever session. But the last session in October, we never had anyone from 8 to 9. So we got to try that tonight. If we don't have anyone from 8 to 9 tonight, in February, when we meet on February 3rd, we will only run 1 section, which will be 7 to 8, meaning it's convenient for a lot of people. So that's so far the deal we have. So our next session, like I said, will be on February 3rd. And if we don't have anyone tonight from the 8 to 9, we will go back to 1 section. Of course, what we always do is that if we're running a section on a Thursday, but then there is maybe a holiday, a global issue, or a kind of busy schedule that people will not be able to attend, what we do, we can also shift to another Thursday. So there's no problem with that. So that's so far the deal we have. So I like to say that you are wholeheartedly welcome. Is there any question before I go to the introduction? All right. So to begin tonight, for the benefits of those joining us for the first time, we'd like to have a brief recap of some of those items that we have studied before. Like I said, this study and group about Africa started November 7, 2020, and it has gone on so well, and it's been enjoyable. Like Linda F said, I mean, we have learned a lot, and she's one person I see her with pen and paper. She writes a whole lot when we are having this section, so I can see that it's a very learning section. And sure, Winter will ask a couple of questions, sometimes even on Zoom or even after the Zoom, she will take phone. Jerry, what's about this issue I came across? So the conversation has continued, and that's something I am so grateful about, and I'm so thankful for all of you attending. So one of the reasons why we started this learning and group is that we wanted to see how best we can have more learning about Africa, especially to help people dispel the idea that Africa is a dark continent, Africans are imperial, and sometimes just to have a better understanding of where this continent is. Because the second reason to that is that there are some people who really just believe that Africa is a country somewhere, but that's not true. Africa is not a country. Africa is a continent with 54 independent countries and with so far 4 territories. We will talk about those territories, but I'm talking about Africa as a continent has 54 huge countries. And some of the biggest countries in Africa include the Democratic Republic of Congo. It might surprise some of you tonight to hear that the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is just one country in Africa, is about the size of Western Europe. Just Democratic Republic of Congo alone is about the size of Western Europe. You might be aware that the CIA, the American CIA classification of the world's region classified Western Europe into 7 to 9 countries, and those countries includes Austria, it includes Belgium, France, Germany, Luxembourg, Liechtenstein, United Kingdom, Monaco, and Ireland. So you just put all these countries together and imagine their size. And imagine the size of Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, that is about the size of Western Europe. You can imagine how huge that country is. So the idea that even I'd like to push is that even in the Democratic Republic of Congo, there is time difference, like you see here in the United States. When it is 6 a.m. in Kinshasa, Kinshasa is the capital city of the Democratic Republic of Congo. When it is 6 a.m. there, it is 7 a.m. in another southeastern city called Lubumbashi. So you can imagine how huge that country is. Another huge country in Africa is the country called Southern Sudan. I was in Southern Sudan for 5.5 years, nearly 6 years. You might surprise you that South Sudan is about the size of France, the country called France in Europe. South Sudan it's so big. And that's not all. We got Sudan, we got Mali, we got Algeria. These are huge countries. So Africa is a very, very huge country. And what came to my mind is that when I was in Southern Sudan, I visited a small administrative district in a place called Pibo. And when I was doing research about Pibo, that small administrative district called Pibo in Southern Sudan, P-I-B-O-R, Pibo. Pibo is the size of a country in Africa we call Malawi. So you can see that in Africa, we got countries in countries. Africa is a very, very big country. So Africa has 54 countries, and I can tell you that research has even shown that the map that we use today is a colonial map that the people drew so smallly, but there's a research going on to rework on the map of Africa. And so Africa is a very, 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 very huge country. I just like to quickly mention that the 4 territories we have in Africa, they are governed by 2 European countries, that is France and the United Kingdom. Besides Western Sahara, Western Sahara is a little territory that is trying to get that is fighting for self-determination to break away from the country called Morocco. So Western Sahara is an autonomous territory that is not governed by anyone, but there's a big politics between Western Sahara, Israel, and the United States to work on whether they will get independent one day. I don't know yet. And I also want to say that Africa is home to the longest river in the world that runs through 11 countries. The Nile River is the longest country in the world. And the Nile River runs through 11 countries. And those countries are Egypt, Sudan, Southern Sudan, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Kenya, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, and Tanzania. And I have been in Uganda where the Nile River starts, where it begins. I've been to the source of the Nile River in Uganda. So it's so big. I mean, Africa is so big. Imagine one river crossing through 11 countries. And the Nile River is 6,650 kilometers or 4,130 miles. is very, very long. So I want to also say that for this idea, we wanted to see how best we can, before we go deep into the continent, especially for those joining, I just wanted to do this recap so that at least we have a better idea of where Africa is and what is about Africa. So that's why we are watching this BBC documentary to have better idea about the continent. Even though we learned since November about some of the continent's people, food, landscape, region, specific country, tribes, and languages, but I want to state that linguistically, Africa is the most diverse continent in the world with more than 2,000 languages. Maybe some people might just be hearing that for the first time. In Africa, we have more than 2,000 languages. And for example, Nigeria, that is the most popular and populated country in Africa, they speak more than 500 languages in Nigeria alone. Just in that country alone, more than 500 languages. South Sudan, where I worked before, there are 64 languages. Kenya, 68 languages. And where I come from, Liberia, is a small country. We only have 16 languages. So Africa is a very diverse continent. In 2016, the population of Africa reached 1.2 billion. And more than 50% of the population is young people. So you can imagine, in 2016, that was 1.2 billion people in Africa, and majority of them are young people. And one last thing I wanted to say is that before we go to our video is that this is something people have, it's all people's choice to agree on that, but according to research, Africa has the longest history in the world than any other country or any other continent, because if people go back to history, you will get to know that all events of humanity started or evolved from Africa. That's something there have been debate about, but there have been a lot of research proving that, humanity started in Africa. So I wanted to stop there to see whether you got any question. That was just a quick recap for us who joined tonight. If you have any question, then we can now move into our video. Any question for that? I see I think a question in the chat back. That is, Gary, do most countries have official languages? Yes, that's a very good question, sure. And in Africa, most countries have official languages. Like in Liberia, our official language is English. In Rwanda, their official language has been French, but after the Rwandan genocide in 1994, because it was Belgium that had a lot of influence in Rwanda, but after the genocide in 1994, they thought the people of Belgium misled them, did not stand by them to prevent the genocide. So they are now changing their official language from French to English. In Southern Sudan, the official language is both Arabic and English. In Kenya, is English and Swahili. In Tanzania, English and Swahili. So thank you very much, Sheriff, for that question. All African countries have official languages that the school in, like in Burkina Faso, the official language is French. In Togo, the official language is French. In Ghana, the official language is English. So all the 54 countries in Africa have their official languages, especially with influence from the colonial masters. Like Liberia, we speak English because of American influence. That's another thing in our video that you saw today about how free slaves were repatriated to Liberia and Sierra Leone. So I want to start that. That was a great question. Is there any question from where we just coming from? Then we prepare to go into our conversation, into our video.
Just real quick, Jerry, I think it's really interesting. I had no idea that English was so prevalent in Africa as an official language. And I imagine that many people in African countries speak multiple languages. I'm just curious, kind of on average, how many different languages may somebody be fluent in?
So what has happened is that particularly in West Africa, where we have both French and English speaking, In those English-speaking countries, there are French institutes where people who want to extend or expand their French can go there and learn. But also at the university level, we have French that is required. French, I took French as required language, French 101, French 102, French 201, and French 202. So you must pass French because they want to have established basic conversational skill in French in these English-speaking countries. The same way in the French-speaking countries, they have English institutes where people can attend if they want to expand their French, their English, but also at the university level, they have English 101, English 102, English 201, and English 202 as a fundamental or required courses that people can do to also improve their conversational skill in English. So that's how it is like. So, but people in Africa, you will see an African who will speak French, who will speak English, who will speak Portuguese because of the Portuguese influence in Angola area. You see somebody who will speak 3 to 4 languages in Africa. But English is widely spoken there though, because quote unquote being an international commercial language, so forth. All right, so let's go to our video tonight. I know that we all learned that during the 16th and 19th century, we had 12.5 million Africans who were slaves by European powers, and it started with the Portuguese. We also learned how women were treated, how slaves were treated, and we got to know that slave was abolished in the United States in 1808, but it did not end until 1865. We also noticed that the remover of the healthiest, strongest people. And that one question I remember David Smith had asked before, what if they had not taken, I think David Smith or John Coos, one of them, but I think John Coos, why if they had not, if the slave trade had not gone to Africa, would Africa well be developed? I think that question was answered in that video where in 1850, we had about 1 million people. And then if they had not taken people from there, we would have doubled that. So Africa has already been affected because of the slave trade. And we also got to know that the slave trade was predominantly abolished because of economic reason. So I want to throw out there what some of the lines that struck you and what did you learn? So that would be a conversation tonight. It's all over to you. It might have been something you learned for the first time. It might have been something you heard before or something you want to a better idea on. That would be great discussion points tonight.
One thing, it was kind of when they went down in the dungeon there, that was pretty sad. The conditions. I mean, where they were saying the open raw sewage and I and I think the guy giving a tour kind of made a good point. How it's like how they're trying to, even though how horrible selling people, that you'd think that they would want to treat them better, because I mean probably a lot of them lost their lives from disease, being in such bad conditions. And it's kind of like, did they almost like they were torturing them, which is kind of sad, I guess. I mean, just because why wouldn't they give them, why did they let them live in such bad conditions? So that was one of the things is, I mean, I don't know what to say about that, but.
Yeah, I think David, me too. When I listened to it, that was a brilliant analysis. If you were an entrepreneur or you were a businessman and you're taking these people to work on your cotton, on your sugar cane, on your tobacco farm or plantation, you're going to recuperate to make money, to make profit. If you could treat them in their own home like that after they've been captured or seized, or after they be arrested or put in those dungeons, getting ready for the ship to come across the Atlantic. If you could treat them there like that, what more when you have brought them back to where they have no land, no people. That was, for me, a very brilliant and powerful analysis. And indeed, it was manifested. You can see what the slaves went through here. And there are records how many slaves preferred to have died, who jumped overboard and died, other than coming to America, because just by the initial treatment, they knew that fire was ahead of them.
I think one thing that, David, you want to keep going?
No, go.
Go ahead.
One thing that when the United States sent the slaves back because they were afraid that they wanted more rights, and it's like, how many years ago was that? And we're still doing things, you know, white people are so afraid that somebody's going to have some political freedom or any other kind of rights. I just thought that was kind of, I think they said somewhere that the US sent slaves back to reduce like them revolting or asking for more rights.
Yeah, so you will see that there were two things that Ezra Willem was saying over there, that why it's true that there was also economic reason for which they took the slaves back, the free slaves back. Those who were already free, keeping them here in America was a threat to the slave institution, because those who were not yet free, if they saw their brothers and sisters being free or already free, enjoying some level of autonomy, enjoying some level of freedom, and they are not, they will aspire also to take steps so that they will be free like their brothers and sisters. So as a way of maintaining the institution of slavery, they decided to extract those people who were already free, to take them back to Africa. One, we know that they wanted some political freedom. They wanted to take part in the political aspiration of the country, but they were not given them. So taking them also back there where they could also organize their own government, they saw that as experience. So they took them out first so that they are not a threat to the institution of slavery. And second to that, for economic reasons, especially after the birth of the Industrial Revolution, they needed to keep the machines moving. So the palm oil, they could harvest and ship here and then get lubricants out of that. So that was another reason. But also just to make sure that those people, if they were out of here, they could find somewhere where they could establish government and not fry their fish into Americans' political affairs. Yeah.
Thank you.
So what?
Yeah, David, I will go back to what
sure.
Diane made. I mean, the point she made, sorry for cutting, especially when she said they are afraid. And that's one reason. You remember the Haitian experience that Dr. Bauer had alluded to, the guy called Toussaint Louverture, something like that, who had a military experience, who was also used slaves to also fight for their freedom, even though he did not slave to see that. But Americans, especially white America, is afraid to give voting rights to people. Joe Biden alluded to that today in his speech about the January 6th incident. See how many states are making it difficult for people to vote. So simply because if you give voting rights to people of color, if they get that power, and Martin Luther King Jr. has said it before, that if we just have that political right, we're able to correct injustice. And this is what white America is afraid of. So they make the voting thing so difficult, because when Black people get the right to vote, they just think that they will turn white people to be under them as what they have done to Black people. But I don't think that's the case. So that's one of the reasons why they make it so difficult for Black people to vote, because of fear. And I want to underline that. Thank you very much, Diane. Because of fear. White America has so much fear that the Black men, when given power, they will do the same thing that they have done to them before. But I don't see that. David, please.
So I guess it was kind of interesting how they said that the US did pretty much all the free slaves go back to Liberia? Was that, or did they go other places too? I think they said, was it the British sent them to Sierra Leone?
Yeah.
And then Americans went to Liberia. Is there other places they went, or those were pretty much exclusive kind of?
So those are the two exclusive areas where they went because of British influence. Great Britain had a colony in Sierra Leone. And because of their influence there and to see and some allies that they had in terms of governance, in terms of, there was also reason in terms of also cheap labor there because they also had influence in Sierra Leone. That's how they managed to organize to send some of those people in Sierra Leone. And if we go back to Sierra Leone, the original name of Freetown, which is the capital, was not from those who went say, oh, well, we are free. So this is Freetown. The same is also with Liberia. When the free slaves went to Liberia, before 1822, Liberia's name was not Liberia. Our name was called the Green Coast, Graincoast, because before this time, even the Portuguese who had gone to Africa earlier before any European power, they were trading in spice, in pepper, in spice. There's this topic the better people want me to speak to them on March 6th, so I'll be at Better Lutheran talking about the spice trade in Africa. So that the spice trade boomed a whole lot in Liberia. So Liberia was called the Green Coast. But when the free slaves landed in Liberia in 1822 on that Providence Island that you saw, usually when we have our Independence Day, we go down there. It is under the bridge just by the river. Go there to have the national occasion. So when they arrived there in 1822, the first batch of people arrived in 1822, even though the video said 1824, but my history tells me 1822, the first batch of free slaves went to Liberia and on a small ship called Elizabeth. So when it comes to Liberia, that's my history. When she said 1822, I said, okay, I'm not sure, but I have done that it's 1822. So that's how they changed Liberia's name from Green Coast to Liberia, meaning liberty. So they went to Freetown and said, oh, we are free. They came to Liberia, they said, oh, we got liberty. So that's how Liberia's name is today as Liberia from the Spanish word liberty.
But then all the towns were named after white men?
So there are many of our towns and cities that are named after the free slaves, those who went there. There are many areas where you see the names of the white people who, even the white people, because before they had gone, we know that in 1816, 1817 to 1818, there were agents sent to Liberia to acquire land. So some of the agents like Julius Asman, Thomas Buchanan, who became the first governor of Liberia, that Joseph Jenkins Rattle, who later became president of Liberia, was ambassador. So we got Asma Street, we got Buchanan Street. So you can see America's fingerprint everywhere, almost in Liberia.
So Jerry, then how?
One thing they talked a little bit about, and I think they said people made maybe make a bigger deal about it than it really is. But I was just wondering your take on it. They were.
Go ahead.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
My computer just went crazy. So I was just lost my train of thought because my computer started talking to me. I don't know if you heard that, but anyway, they were talking about the kind of the mixing of the two cultures. You had the natives in that never left Liberia, and then you had some that they came from the United States as freed slaves. So at one time they were from their ancestors were from Africa, but they were kind of or I guess I don't know, I guess they could have been if they were slaves that newly came over that maybe they come back, but I'm guessing it's mostly generations later of the slaves that kind of came back, the majority, and just how they kind of, the cultures interacted. And I don't know if you had any take on that.
Yeah, so if the first slave, we know that the Europeans, especially the Portuguese, had traded in slaves in the 1500s. But in 1619, the first enslaved Africans landed in Jamestown, Virginia in 1619. So from 1619 to 1719, from 1719 to 1822, that was 200 years later before the repatriation of free slaves took place. So the issue is when somebody said that when they came, they recognized some languages. I was trying to scratch my head about that, because the idea there is people came from all over Africa and brought in America as slaves. And when they were repatriating them, they did not carry them to their original places. They took them elsewhere. So for me, it would be a little difficult to understand the culture, not alone the language that was there. That's my analysis, because people who came from Congo 200 years ago and then born children, that would be nearly 3 generations before going back. Knowing the language or culture would just be very hard for me. That's my analysis. But you know, writers of history look at it from different perspectives. But one important point that William Allen made is that where the two cultures, go bi-directional is something that I appreciate and wish is true. So sometimes if you see me dress, I wear a white long sleeve shirt with necktie, then with my country club over it, that becomes bi-directional, because wearing necktie is not originally our culture in Liberia. That's a white man culture that was taken by the free slaves. So that's the bi-directional thing that really resonates with me a lot. So the culture goes bi-directional in Liberia, and that was, I think, very powerful. So while it's true that those who left from here had some level of education, had some level of Christianity, had level of governance, they organized, they wrote the Constitution, they fashioned it after America, they organized the government, they fashioned it after America. But you can see that that was so powerful, because those who came from here, they ran the government for 125 to 30 years and excluded those who were on the ground. It was just of late in the 1980s when you saw natives, now 1970s when natives, Liberians, started taking a lead role in the governance. So even right now we have a native who is a president, and mind you, those who left from here were just 5%, according to what the video have alluded to. So yes, the culture is bi-directional, but also the culture that you see in Liberia is mixed, and we get to accept everything. And that was a very powerful point. If you listen to Judy Andy, the culture ambassador of Liberia, she said that's something we need to preserve, because we can't keep fighting, or we can't push it away, or we can't do away with that. And earlier on, Sharon, I wanted to make points. So Sharon, can you go ahead, please, if you still remember your point you wanted to make?
Well, it was basically the same question. I wondered how the indigenous people accepted the returning slaves, or if there was conflict. So it's kind of the same question. But.
Yeah, the reality is there was really conflict. There was conflict between the natives that they met there and that of the free American slaves. There were rivalry, there were conflicts, there were rapes, but then later on it became settled. But if you actually also just go back to Liberian history, you will get to know that the very people who had left from here were the ones who started writing the history. So you see that it is only the victors who write history, and when the victors write history, they get to write it to suit them, that everything was rosy all the way they conquered the people they met there. So that's how it is like. But I think it's a very powerful history we have over there between those who were free and went back to Africa and those who were on the ground, and how the both cultures, how they interacts.
I thought it was really interesting when he started talking about the epigenetics.
Okay.
Like how that affected even the people that were involved in the slave trade, the enslaved people coming back, like the the fact that had affected their genetics in some way. And I know that other authors have talked about how like there's kind of that imprint in your genetics as time goes on. But I just thought that I hadn't really thought about the fact that, I mean, obviously taking enslaved people and then kind of dumping them off in a place that says like, oh, you're free now here, with a culture that's been existing, and then the fact that they've existed somewhere else and that has affected their, I mean, everything about them, and where like how some of them were born in the United States and came over.
I can imagine it was very difficult for those people who even went, but they had no choice because one, they wanted some political rights, and in Liberia, they could organize government and run their own thing because they were aspiring for political rights that they could not get in Liberia. So that was a blessing for them on the other side, but also a curse that they were also leaving America that they had known throughout their life. It's almost like this, their DACA program. You got, I think, kids born in America, and according to American politics, or a whole time you want to deport them to go back, so it becomes like a political capital. So it's the issue of control, you know. So the Democrats will say we will keep them, the Republicans come, we want to send them. So they begin to talk about that. So they knew nothing about Africans, and they just dumped them there. But the fact that they were able to organize government and have a say and have autonomy, that was I think powerful for them in a sense. But I think it was very tough going to an area that you knew nothing about. And initially, most of them who went also died a whole lot. This is something I need to clear out, because including missionaries who were following them to build churches, including some of them who left from here when they went first, the mosquitoes in Africa, 8 men of them, and they died because they could not withstand the mosquitoes. Yes, so that's something I wanted to mention, especially the whites that were among the men of the whites died from mosquitoes. But don't be afraid. Amy, you're looking at John's face. I know we plan to go to Liberia. Mosquito not going to do anything to you. Okay.
Gary?
Yep.
Okay, earlier in the video, this is just for my own information. This Ajuba Diallo,
Yes.
he was a slave that was sent to Maryland.
Yeah.
And then his owner realized he had some African nobility.
Yeah.
They released him. And he came back to Africa via London, and then he had his picture painted.
Yeah.
So why? So, I mean, they were that afraid of his African nobility that they let him go?
Well, I mean, there are thousands of stories, and I'm sure that's something that might have captured or the attention of the team that was doing the documentary. But after Diallo was visiting the Gambia, one thing, there is a country in Africa, Senegal is very popular. One little country around Senegal is called Gambia. Gambia, if you technically look at the map, Gambia is inside Senegal. And so it used to be one country called Senegambia. So later on, Gambia got independent from Senegal. So there is a Gambia River, or Senegal River, where Diallo was visiting when he was snatched and got into slavery and later came to America. But then he comes from a noble family. I've not been able to do the research of the noble family that he came from. But when they recognized his nobility, that's how he was released from the United States here. And he went back to Africa based on the documentary via London. And I think the portrait they painted about him, they tried to talk about how powerful he was and how he left slavery and so forth. But that's something I don't have a very authoritative knowledge on. That's something I could go into. But at least he was free because he comes from a noble family, and they recognize the noble family he comes from. That's how he was able to be released. Otherwise, there are a lot of people who would never be released in that case.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I thought it was a good wrap up at the end when this Augustine Hall, he was a professor.
Yeah.
He said that to this day yet, the slave trade is not completely researched or understood. Do you remember that?
That's true. That's very powerful, and I share that sentiment as well. There are a lot of people who just don't understand the slavery, and there are a lot of people because of the cruelty associated with it, they still think did it really truly happen? People really get to ask that question. Did it really truly happen? It did. It did happen, and even see what they used to do, in that castle in Ghana, in that very area where Ukona Ije was showing to Zena in the video. I've been down there in that very dungeon. I've been there, and the fight is people just still can't understand or still deny that this thing truly happened, but it did. And people are still researching, and there are a lot of documentaries, there are a lot of document research out there about the slave trade. And I think that's very, very powerful. A lot of people still just don't understand the slave trade. And there are a lot of documents that coming on. And I'm coming to you, I know Pastor Jan want to ask a question, but to just let you know that there are a lot of documents, there are a lot of research going on. You remember the 12 guy in Ghana, the former university professor who was taking Zena around. He said that there was let's say of late, there was a record that the people fought. They fought against their enslavement. They fought against their to being captured. But according to earlier document, we have read that slaves were coming up voluntarily to say, yes, we want to go to the new world. Who will want to come to a place that you coming to meet fire, hell? So that was a lie, but according to information, people really resisted. They fought that they didn't want to come, and that's what happened according to the two female Ghanaian professors who were talking how the epic of the women, I mean, is noted, where they could come and say, okay, we will let one person go, but we'd rather die here than go die where we don't know. So they would set themselves on fire and let one woman go to narrate the story. So there's still research taking place on the slave trade in Africa and elsewhere. Yes, Pastor Jen, I know you got yourself unmuted to ask questions if you will.
Well, what you were saying really ties into that too, because someone I heard recently said, you know, history isn't something that happened in the past, it's who we are. Yes. And I think what I really heard in this presentation was that we rewrite history to try to make ourselves look better. Especially, it was a surprise to me about the palm oil, that the economic interest in keeping the workers in Africa to produce the palm oil, to grease the wheels of our industrialization, literally. It was an economic, it was a mercenary motive. But we tend to think of altruistic people kind of rising to the surface, like Wilberforce in England and some of the Quakers in this country and other folks who said, this is wrong. And they did. That wasn't false, but it could happen because of this mercenary. It doesn't give us a very positive picture of humanity, but it is who we are, and we need to know that too, because history is who we are now still. And I was glad that you referred to the epic described by the women professors. I was glad they had women professors as well as men professors in there, but the fact that the women chose one of their number to remain alive and tell the story and sing the song, because we need to know this, because this needs to be passed on. So it's just astonishing to me in a way that we can delude ourselves, but also that we have the capacity to go back and have our minds opened in some way. So.
Yeah, thank you, Pastor Jan. Yeah, history is who we are, and I totally agree with you. I wouldn't agree with you more than that. It's totally who we are. And those women, when I heard even the perspective of the women who would just set themselves on fire, then to send one person to go sing the song, to tell the story, was very, very powerful. And I can tell you that I will personally say this, and this is something I have told many of my audiences, that had the industrial revolution not come, there will still be slavery today. I know that slavery is still going on, but there will be, the slavery will stay continue if the industrial revolution had not come, because the job the machines were doing, that what human beings were doing. But like Dr. Williams said, what did they now, since we need oil to grease our machine, we will send them and we will get the tropical produce out there, out of them also. And it continues because even the labor is so cheap and they were not paying the people well. So they just did it for economic reason. People would say that there were humanitarian, spiritual, or religious reason. People like the Quakers above over there, people were advocating that we wanted the slave trade to end. Christians were saying this is against the will of God, but the economic reason was more powerful than even the humanitarian reason.
One of the things that I think is so interesting to think about, and I think this might have been brought up in a past conversation about this, but how the population or the age of the men and the women that were recruited for the slave trade were at that prime age where they would normally be contributing to society and innovation, and developing their country. Yeah. But they were taken away from that. So it's interesting to think about where Africa would be, or the countries in Africa would be, had slavery not happened in terms of development of the countries.
That's powerful. I see that. And I still see that in America today. So Africa had a complete brain drain because the healthiest men, the women, there's another version that would describe the kind of women the white men were looking for to bring. They were bringing the taller women, the huge women, able-bodied women. Even it applies today in Africa. The hewers, the woman with big body, the many cows that are paid for her dairy, they are very expensive when she's huge with big legs. They get to pay a lot of money for their dairy in Southern Sudan or in other African cultures. So they were taking the huge women, the strong women, the healthier women, the strong men weighing 120 pounds. They were not bringing people lower than that. Men weighing 120 pounds were what they were looking for. Those huge men who would make impact on their communities in Africa. They brought all of them here, 12.5 million people. And so Africa had a brain drain in terms of resources, natural resources, in terms of human resources. Africa was just totally affected, and it still affects the continent today. Before the next points come in, there's a name. I see Laurie Clan. I didn't get to recognize that person. Laurie, are you there? I don't know where the person from. There is a name. Hello, Laurie.
Hi, yes, I'm here. How are you, Jerry?
Oh, good to see you. I didn't get to see you on the video, but you are totally okay with that. Good to see you. Where are you from? You want to introduce yourself briefly?
Yep,
Okay.
I'm from Peace Church.
Okay, good to see you, Laurie. Good to see you.
Yep.
Yeah, I
You too.
remember. I don't remember us having conversation, so I said, let me recognize this person. Yeah, so I know we got 4 minutes, and I'm going to be here till 8:30 to see who comes. And if nobody comes tonight for the second session from 8 to 9, our February 3rd session, we will only have 1 more section, not 2, but I'm glad to have all of you people. So in our next 4 minutes, let's continue. Is there any line or any question you want to ask about the video or the paper I earlier presented, or is there any new thing that strikes you want to have an idea on?
Well, Jerry, I was just thinking about, you were talking about the keeping the labor, the cheap labor over in Africa with the palm oil and all of that is an economic benefit to us or the Western countries, I guess. And you think, well, okay, so we've moved on beyond that simple manufacturing paradigm into information age and that kind of thing, and wouldn't there be a possibility for folks in Africa to benefit more from that kind of an economy? But it takes minerals and resources from the earth to make those things work. And guess who's left doing, you might say, the dirty work of getting that out of the ground?
Well, I hope I understood the question, but just talking about the mineral and also technology, there is something called the Captain. Is it Captain? I'm not sure. I was talking this with Jan and Bob the other day when I went to their house on Thanksgiving Day. There is something responsible for the transmission of all the billions of mobile phones that people use. That mineral comes from Congo. But over 40 years, 45 years, the people of Congo still being at war. So why wouldn't they have phone industry there to help the people? But people will dig the raw material, the labor is there, they dig the raw material and they ship it abroad to the United States. The same with my country, Liberia. You heard of Bridgestone or Firestone. All the tires you see under the millions of cars on American streets or around the world, 50 to 60% of the raw material comes from a very small called Liberia, my country. If we fly to Liberia, Jessica, Claire, all of you people I'm taking to Liberia, hopefully, before you land at the airport, you will fly over so many thousand miles. I mean, let's say kilometers or hundreds of kilometers of what we call rubber pump. They produce the tires out of rubber. So they process the rubber and take the raw material out of Liberia. Before the year 2000, Liberia was the world largest producing rubber country in the world. But a lot of countries, Malaysia and different countries are coming in with rubber now. So we are like producing 50 to 60%. But to take the raw material, bring it to the West, get the finishing product and take it there. So that's the same brain drain. That's the same cheap labor. That's just how Africa is affected. And so Congo, Liberia, and other Guinea, where they take the bauxite from, that's how all the countries are affected. Yeah, all because of European power, and I think that's totally greed. But people just don't see that side of the entire story. It's 8 o'clock. Those who want to leave us will be happy to, if you can take leave of us. I'm going to be around until 8:30. But otherwise, I'm so grateful. If somebody wants to use 2-3 minutes to say 1 or 2 last words, that's great. Other than that, I will see you on February 3rd. Thank you very much for attending tonight. I want to be very respectful of your time.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night.
Well, I do have a question, Jerry, and that's, so Bob and I have just come in at this point, and I can tell that there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of good learning up to this point. This one was recorded. Have past sessions been recorded, and are the other videos available for
the past sessions haven't been recorded, but Pastor Paul from Peace Church thought it would be great to have it recorded, and I think that was a great mistake from the very beginning with it, because we have had tremendous rich discussion. Jessica, you see on the screen, she has been reading. I think there's a book even she did when she was in high school. We got that book. We have done the first 3 chapters. We will get back to that. Claire have been making some research about African food, how people brought cooking from Africa and to America, how it's being expanded, and how people understanding about yam, cassava, all these edible. We got yam, edible, plantain, but everything is just bunched as yam, but there are different categories. She has been reading a lot. Sure, got a lot of interest in Africa. So we haven't been able, even some here you see on the screen, we get one of the sessions where she shared about her experience visiting Uganda. So it was a very amazing conversation we had before. But what happened is that we didn't record it. But this is the first recording we have, and Claire is going to put it on the church's website for people. I don't know whether you can edit Zoom to see where we can pick up little glitches from, but it's not, we can edit it, we will just put it there. But other than that, the pastor in Bern, who introduced me to you, Pastor Karen, she requested for the previous videos, and we send it to her. So I can send you about the videos. That's something you guys can keep on watching and just to catch up with the presentations. So is that something you would like to do, Pastor Jan, to send you those videos we have watched, then you can take time and just watch so that you'll be able to catch up with us? Okay, I'm going to send you those videos.
It might take me a little while to get through them, but I would love to.
Yeah, and you are not obligated to come back to say it, oh, I watched, but if there's something that resonated with you and in our future section, you can just say, oh, when I watched this video, this was said, that would be perfect. So that's okay, Pastor Dan. Yeah, but I will send you those links so that you and Bob can take time to watch them.
Yeah.
Deborah, who is Deborah? Oh, Deborah Struder. Deborah. Hi, Deborah. Okay. Yeah, so I will stop the recording now. It's gone 4 minutes past 8. I'm going to stop the recording and then we will have what we have already have for the night.
The only reason I say anything is that it may